Okay, let's get rolling here. So, in case I forgot to mention, special thanks go out to Doug for helping me out with today's hike. Again, we are on private property here. Oh my God, it's just disgusting. So, I was kind of humming and hawing about these hikes, right? Because we didn't get a lot of, we had a really weird winter, especially compared to the last couple of years. You know, it was mild. We didn't get a ton of snow. It's been warm recently, so a lot of the snow has gone away. So now we're kind of in this goofy time here where a lot of the snow has gone away, but you can still obviously see patches of it in places, and the ground is still frozen, as we can see, and so the water doesn't really have a ton of places to go, so it's just kind of sitting on the surface. And Luna's all excited because we haven't really done a hike like this in a long time, and I think she really appreciates this area here. It doesn't have all the rocky ballast that we're used to with the Kinghorn line. So unfortunately, in this area in particular, a lot of the traces of the railway line have been kind of obliterated. This has been used, this area was used as a quarry, as a gravel pit for a long time. And you're going to see that even more as we just come up ahead here. Just keeping my eyes out. I've been down here a few times. So this is basically a redo. We did this piece back 4 years ago in 2020, right when the pandemic started, and you weren't supposed to kind of hang out with people, so this was a great way to not hang out with anybody. So we're coming up to a rock cut here, and this is really, I think, the only real sort of rock feature on this southern part of the nose. Got to be careful here because there's like ice and muck. The bike's gonna be filthy. So here you can kind of notice the sort of the geography of the area, and you're gonna see this a lot. The very shale-like appearance of the rock. Basically, it pretty much probably is shale, which is sedimentary rock, which is not very typical for this particular area. Basically, we're in the Canadian Shield here, so you're getting a lot of igneous type of rock. So again, this is sort of very unusual. Pretty pronounced here on the north side. Gotta be 20 feet at least, if not more. You know, if you watch my videos very often, you know that I'm terrible at estimating the heights of these rock cuts. All right, so we'll leave the rock cut behind here. It's not particularly long, maybe 100 feet or so. So again, we're climbing the whole way here, right? Because remember, we're trying to get elevation here. This actually used to be, I forgot to mention in the previous segment that we were talking about the Moose's Nose here and why this was built. This used to actually be the shoreline of Lake Superior. Somebody's old car. You can imagine in the old days, this was, you know, people would have come in here all the time. So you can see an old car, can't even tell what that is. So this used to be the shoreline of Lake Superior. And actually right up in between here, so right in between the Moose's Nose here, there's actually a very famous archaeological site that is known as the Cummins site. I believe it was discovered in the 1960s, and it's probably one of the most important Paleolithic period indigenous sites in the area, where they basically found a lot of artifacts, and basically from what they saw there, they could tell that this used to be basically the shoreline of the lake, and this used to be an encampment for the indigenous people that inhabited this area and still do. We are on treaty land here, so this is part of the Robinson Superior Treaty area dating back to 1850. So again, you can see kind of this middle part of the pit here, and again a lot of the gravel and stuff that would have been removed, again indicative of sort of being this sort of the shoreline of the lake here. Unfortunately, lots of garbage and stuff that people left behind. Okay, so this is where things get a little tricky because of the quarrying work. It's very difficult to sort of figure out exactly where the line went. So there was a lot of me studying old maps and looking at Google Earth and basically trying to pin everything so I could get the exact route, right? Because you can imagine this whole area is, the grade in this area is gone. Okay, so it's a couple of days after the initial hike. We're back here because I wanted to redo this portion of the exploration, simply because it didn't kind of like the way that it turned out. Now I have kind of a better idea of where we should be going. So what happens is that the gravel work here, the quarry work, kind of wants to pull you sort of this way, and we have to kind of go this way to stay on the railway grade. So hopefully, now that I kind of know where I should be shooting for, I can stay on the grade. It's a completely different day in terms of the weather. I don't know if you hear the wind whistling on the camera. It was fairly decently warm that other day. Today it's freezing cold. It's -7, and with the wind it's like -15 or 16. So here we're kind of should be right on the grade here, more or less. You can see really the sandy nature of the soil here, again consistent with the shoreline of the lake. Hard to pedal through. Kind of pretty in through here as well with the poplars and the birch and the jack pines. So the grade kind of cuts through here. So the reason why we came back to do this is, again, there was a few things that I wanted to clean up, and then we might get some snow this week with the cold, a turn back to the cold temperatures, and I'm worried that we're gonna get some snow. That's going to make things a little more challenging to come back here. You can see there's been a dusting of snow on top of what was left. So, oops. Okay, so the railway cuts in through here, right here, and then it drops. So we had the same sort of issue over there where we had that quarrying work, and so the grade dropped and then it came back up to this level, and it's going to drop again and then it's going to come back out. So basically where they did the excavating work. So the grade comes down here, so basically in through here, right through this copse of trees here. So right in through here, so right from there into there. And then we have to kind of deviate a little bit to get around the trees. Now, what was interesting when I came here the other day, this hole here is normally filled with water, and it's been so dry lately that that obviously it's completely dried up. It's been dry for the last year. Dry spring, dry summer, dry fall, dry winter. So yeah, there's not a lot of water. So the line would have come through here, and now I know it kind of goes up right through that area right there. So Alba Station would have been located right in this area here. Now we need to talk a little bit about Alba Station because there's some stuff going on here with the station. Now the first thing we want to mention is about the name. So Grand Trunk had this tradition of naming its stations alphabetically. And so when I show you some of the timetables here momentarily, you'll basically see the naming of the timetables. It wasn't precise. There was a few that didn't quite fit the pattern for a variety of different reasons, but for the most part, that was the pattern. So Alba's here, the next one is Baird, the one after that is Crest, the one after that is Dona, okay? So that's the first thing about the naming of the station. Now, the second thing is that Alba wasn't an original station. So again, momentarily, when you see those timetables, you're going to notice in 1908, the station isn't here. So it was added later. Now, unfortunately, as of right now, I don't have any of the employee timetables from 1909 to 1914. I'm hoping to get some, but I do have a public timetable, and it is here in 1911, and so I will show you that. And so it is established after that. Now the issue is that it's not located here. It's actually located about 2.3 miles to the east, and so further east, and that was the original location for it. So in 1911, 1913, 1915, it shows up at milepost 6.2, and then it's shifted. And so in 1919, when it becomes part of Canadian National Railways, it shows up at milepost 8.5, which is right here. Now, to sort of validate all of that, I went back and sort of checked against, you know, the nearby stations. So, for example, I checked the distance from Alba to Baird, which is the next station. So in 1911, the mileage is 7.6, and then in 1913 it's 7, in 1915 it's 7. So relatively, you're in the same area. And then from 1919 onwards to 1925, when it's abandoned, the mileage is 5.4 to Baird Station. So it was shifted to this area. Why it was shifted, we don't know. Okay, there's no indication as to why it was shifted into this particular spot. So, but anyway, for 6 years, from 1919 and 1925, this was the location of Alba Station. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flash you up a map and those timetables. Okay, so now that you've seen those, a couple other notes about Alba. We don't know what was located here at Alba in terms of a station. Again, we're pretty close to the city, so at the time Fort William and Port Arthur. So I don't know what was here. We know that many of the other stations on the line were Grand Trunk Type E stations, and those stations were put in around between 1910 and 1912, which is around the time that Alba Station was established, or at least we think it was established. So it may have had one of those Type E stations. Again, I don't know. You can see that basically there's no trace of anything in this particular area. Probably there would have been a section house in this particular location. And the last thing that we want to mention about Alba is Alba Station still exists. So yes, see, this is how easy it is to get off track here. That's what I did the last time I went up there. We got to go up here. So it cuts across through here. This is where we need to go. Alba still exists. So when this line, this portion of the line was abandoned in 1925, when they rerouted the line, and at the time the Crest Subdivision was abandoned, all of the stations that were on this line, so Alba, Baird, Crest, and Donagh, were abandoned. Now Alba was resurrected, and it became part of one of the nearby lines. So it became part of the Kashabawi subdivision, which originally was part of the Canadian Northern Line that ran to the west towards Atikokan, originally known as the Ontario Division, later the Port Arthur Subdivision, and then became the Kashabawi Subdivision. So Alba Station is still located on that line, and maybe I'll flash you up a timetable here so you can see that. Okay, so we're kind of climbing back up a little bit here. So again, the railway would have come through right in this area. Station probably would have been on this side. Siding, again, probably in here. It was a smaller siding than some of the other places on the line. And then the grade would have come through this area here, because that's where the grade resumes, right up there. And you can see the elevation change, the difference between where we are. So again, this was all sort of dug out, and basically where it resumes right up there. So we're several feet below where we should be. Okay, so we're going to hold up here, and then basically we're going to resume the next section here. That's going to take us to the east and around the tip of the nose of the moose.